Hey, I'm Neil from the Pentatonic Way, and in this video I'm going to show you how to play the intro jam that I did on Tom Bailey's Pink Floyd backing track in E minor. If you want to check out that video, you can find it here, or we're going to get into learning it right now. Alright, so first I thought we could take a look at the video, the intro I did, and get an idea of what we're going to be learning today. Alright, so let's check it out. So let's take a look at the chords we're going to be using in this backing track, because that's going to determine what scales we're going to use. They're all going to be pentatonics, but I like to change scales or pentatonic shapes for each chord to really bring out the sound of that chord in the progression in my solo. So the only three chords. The first one is E minor, and then D major, then C major, and then E minor, and then D major again, and that's the turnaround, and then back to the beginning. Alright? So for the beginning of the track, the first time through, I'm basically just playing chords, but I'm using shapes that I took out of the pentatonic scales. So these are the scales we're going to be using for this first section. Alright? So you can see them on screen. Wherever they end up, and I'm going to use for the E minor, we're using that shape, the fourth shape of the pentatonic. Alright, and for the D major and the C major, we're going to be using the first shape of the pentatonic, so we'll use this one. And for the C major, we just move it down. Alright, so let's take a look at the actual chords here on the tabs. We have just a straight up E major and E minor to start it off there. And then you have like those two X's. That's like a mute, so you kind of hold lightly on the strings there and just hit that. And I don't even know I'm doing that most of the time when I'm playing. It's just because that lands right on the downbeat. You can see right here, it's right on the 2. So 1, 2, and then I play on the and. So it just is kind of like a placeholder to get me set, you know, so. Alright, so you have that sort of mute thing, and then you have this. And what that is, like a Hendrixy thing where you're holding the middle finger on the 8th fret on that B string. With these two fingers, you're doing a hammer on from 7 to 9. That 7, see how it's tiny there on the tab? That means it's a ghost note. And it's like not even really there, it's a ghost. Alright, so you have, and then you go down to the 7, and then the 9. Alright? And then the 9 on that string. So we're changing a D here. So now we're in the first shape of the pentatonic. So let's check out that bar again. We got dun dun dun. All right, because we're in this shape of the D major. And that's one of my favorite chords you can pull out of the pentatonic scale. So if you're using this D major or this bar chord anytime, you can just move that first note up 2 frets, 2 whole steps. Now you're playing the 3rd in the bass. I think it sounds great. So cool. So that's what we're doing for the D major right there. And you can see I do adding the 10 there on the B string. All right, so let's check that out up to there. There's that. The D. All right, and right there, that you can see that shape. We move down. We're using the first shape again for C, but there's that chord, the inversion of that major chord, and I just go down the pentatonics. So, right? And then back to E minor, and we're using this shape. All right, so just chugging, picking single notes from that chord voicing. And then we start getting into single note stuff. So that's this shape, but instead of playing it like that, now I'm bending, and that's a half step bend. So it only sounds like you're moving up one fret. That's how you can check it. All right. So the last two bars, the E minor and D major. All right, so let's check out the C and the E minor there. Yeah. Now that is a pull off from the 10 to 8. And you can reach your ring finger and then your middle finger to get those two nines. And then reach back with your pointer to get that 7 and bar across. All right? Cool. Now let's hear the next couple bars. Now we're into the second time round, and I'm starting to do some, some single note stuff. It's that Hendrixy thing again. All right. So we start with that Hendrixy thing again. So, and that you try to keep that eighth note, not eighth note, but it's on the 8th fret, ringing out the whole time. So you have, and then a hammer on 7 and 9, and then 7 on the G string, back to 9 on the D string, and give it some vibrato. And I just love those. It sounds like you're digging in, just like, you know what I mean? So, and then you have a slide. So let's hear how that sounds. So you have a ghost note again going into that 9. It's like it's not even there, it's just for flavor. And then back down to the 7 and hit that 8th, because we're in that 4th shape of the pentatonic. Because we're in E. Now we're going to D major, so we're gonna hit this note. Now, last time we did this half note bend, we went down, right? So I think in the back of my mind, I was like, don't do that again. So we went up in the scale to the 10th fret on the B string. And then I wanted to do a pickup to keep the momentum going. So I did another ghost note from 6 to 7 on the B string. And then 10 on the bottom string, the E string. So you got kind of like leading you into the next lick. Rick Beato calls them pickups, I think, or something, where it's like, doing it. So you're talking and you don't want to finish your phrase. You just finish talking and then you're like, but also, or, you know, so people don't lose interest and they think you're done talking, but you're like, yeah, he went to this place and you finish your sentence, you know? That's kind of how I imagine those kind of work. All right, so let's check out the next bars. So we're into C major here. All right, so now we're in the second shape. You can see there on screen the second shape of the pentatonics for C. And we're gonna do this. So it's kind of like the same lick, different variations on it. So you do probably should be a pull off 10 to 8 and then 8 to 10 on the B string. You can do those as pull offs and hammer-ons. A little vibrato. And then now do 10-8 on both strings. And then the Hendrixy thing again, because that you can see that it fits both into the fourth shape and the second shape of the pentatonic. So all right. And that time we go back to the 7, so you do that. Oh, and actually the only difference is it's going to go to 10 here because we're in that shape. If we did it here, it wouldn't sound as great. I mean, that's the 7th of C, but this sounds more dialed in. All right. Now we're back to E. We're using the first shape, and we're going to do this kind of string skipping thing that I liked. All right, so that's going over the E chord and the D chord. So you do all right, so you're doing a pull off 9 to 7 and then hitting the the 8th fret there on the B string twice, and then back there to the D string and do a pull off hammer on. And now that note that was 8, now we're in D, so now it's 7. So, and then, so you do 7, 9, 7, 10, 7. So, pretty cool. And try to get some vibrato on that 8th. Otherwise it sounds, you know, dead. Just vibrato everywhere. I don't know. Some people may say no to that, but I don't know. It's more of a feel thing. Like, can I get some life out of this note? And it reacts with your sound, and sometimes will make it like glow in a way, if sounds can glow. All right, cool. And next, we get into the third time round. This is where I crank up the volume knob a little bit. I do a big slide into that 10th fret. Now, I was thinking David Gilmour when I thought of this. I'm like, he does those cool like bends that just keep going, you know? So, he does a lot of those. Sometimes he'll do like a big major third bend, like, but that wouldn't fit in this song with the way that the scales went. So, all right, so you slide into that 10, give it a copious amount of vibrato. Then you do a whole note bend instead of, not a whole note, a whole step bend. Instead of like a half step we were doing before, because of the scale, we have to do a whole step. So what you do is you do a bend up and release, and then a bend up, and then at the end of that bend, go down to the 8th fret and give that some vibrato. Excuse me. So cool. And then we're gonna go to D, right? So we have to hit that 7th note. So that sounds like this. You see? All right, so let's start from the E minor. All right. So we get that half step bend there. And we've done that before, so now I add a little bit of some digging in there with that Hendrix technique there. Kind of really quickly. All right. And then I kind of cut off that last 9 there real quick, right? Like if I let it ring out, but I can't do it. I mean, it sounds cool, but it's kind of cool when you're getting into that. It's more aggressive sounding, I guess, in this case. And it's kind of like building you up. It's the spaces in between the notes, as Miles says. And then it starts getting into this. Now, it goes 7-10, 7-7-10. So on the A string, 7-10. And then bar those 2 7s and come back to the 10 on the D string for the C. Now this 10 isn't in that first shape that we're playing on the D major, right? So it's kind of anticipating the C, which you can do sometimes. So if you know that you're going to the second shape of the pentatonics, right at the end of the bar like this, like right before it changes, you can throw in that 10. I could have done a 9 instead, and that would have sounded cool. And that's probably more appropriate, but when you play the 10, it's like it sounds wrong, but then the chord changes, and then it's in context, and you're like, oh, that's cool. It was like, it built up to it. It led up to that. All right, cool. So the next part is in C, and now I'm building towards the end, and I like these sort of licks that kind of wrap around themselves a little bit. So this one, let's take a listen to it. All right. All right, so that one, you slide your middle finger into the 9th fret, then you do 8, 10, right? So you have that, hammer on 8, 10, back to the 9 on the G string, then all right, so and then 8, 8, and a big bend on the 10. So you bend it up, then you pick it at its apex and release, and that's a whole step. And then to 8, and then you have your 10 on the B string, big vibrato. See how you can get that sound of glow? It's almost like starting to feed back. All right, cool. Now we get into this big blustery lick at the end. Cool. So that's kind of just to add some texture, you know, like everything's been really long notes. Now we're adding some sort of quick notes here. And this is one of my favorite pentatonic licks of all time for getting speed out of them, all right? So let's check it out. The idea behind this is simply this. Right? It's so simple to do. Basically, you're just playing those notes, you play a note on the bottom of those two strings and do this on the string above. And the next one, you do this and do that. So. You can do all sorts of stuff, just keep alternating between these. Pretty cool. So what I did here was created a run going down first. In this bar, we're using the first shape of the pentatonic, and then in this bar we switch to this bar we're doing the fourth shape, this bar we're doing the first shape. So you see there's all eights here, and then those switch to sevens. That's all. All right, so let's check it out. We do 10, and then 10, 8, 10. Right? And you can do that with these fingers. And then reach back to the 7 and do those. Right? All right, cool. So, but now to descend the scale, you have to, so 10, 7, 10, 8, 9, and now you do it again. So you do. All right. All right, so this one actually does go back to the 9 because we're at the end of the bar here, and we're switching to D major. So, all right. And now for the D major, now we switch to the first shape of the pentatonic. So we get on the B string and the G string. You can do it with these fingers, or use your pinky. Probably better if you can do both, you know. So you can use this lick in other, situations. All right, so. And now we got 9, 9, 7, 9. And then to end the lick, 7, 9, 7. And then 9, 7. Landing on that E chord, right on the root. So it's kind of like you stick the landing after doing a bunch of crazy gymnastics, right? So you got. Oh. All right. Just take that slow. Eventually you get it. Just keep building up the speed. That's a great lick to practice all over the neck. And then you can just come up with like stuff like this on the fly, you know? Cool. So that's the whole intro, all the licks. If you enjoyed this, if you like this idea of soloing, using the pentatonics to kind of outline the chord changes, if you enjoyed this, you can check out more of the stuff at the Pentatonic Way. There's a link in the description. It'll take you right there. And I want to thank Tom again for letting me jam on his track, his beautiful track, and I hope to do it in the future. And I will catch you later. Take care.